Hello and welcome to the Peacekeeper Project. My name is Ben. Today I want to talk about emotional intelligence. What is it, why it's important, and why you need it. Now I believe that emotional intelligence is an essential life skill because it helps us in many ways to navigate all that life throws at us. And there are some studies that say that emotional intelligence is actually more important than IQ in overall success in life. And I think you'll come to understand why that might be as we go through this video. Alright, so what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is the ability to identify, manage, and express our emotions, as well as recognize emotions in others and empathize with them. So this helps us in many ways, from our own mental health and wellness and self-awareness, levels of joy and happiness, to our ability to communicate effectively and build healthy relationships. Relationships from our intimate relationships, friends, family, to our work relationships. We all have to navigate our emotions to build relationships. And on a broader level, it helps us to build a more deeply connected community, society, and world. All right, now let's go a little deeper into emotional intelligence because there are a few levels or aspects to it that are important to understand. And the first one is emotional awareness. So this is the ability to identify, feel, and name our emotions. And that's not always as easy as we think, because emotions bring with them sensations and feelings in our body. And although we can feel those things, we don't always know what they are. We don't recognize them as one emotion or another. And sometimes these feelings can be uncomfortable, and we'd rather not feel them. We'd rather push them away or suppress them. And sometimes it can be frustrating to have feelings and sensations in our body, but we don't know what they are. It's just a sensation that we are uncomfortable with. So emotional awareness brings this ability to recognize what they are. All right, now the next aspect is emotional understanding. This is more about understanding what are our emotions and where do they come from? What kind of things and events trigger our emotions? Because we can recognize emotions, we can have those sensations in our body, we recognize what they are, but we don't necessarily understand where they come from. But when we do start to understand their source, maybe it's childhood traumas, maybe it's life experiences, then it brings a greater level or a deeper level of emotional intelligence. All right, now the next aspect is emotional navigation. Now we could also use the word manage or regulate our emotions, but I like the word navigate because that's what it feels like when navigating our emotions, our insecurities, our fears. So we have emotions and we have emotional reactions. This is a natural part of life, but that doesn't mean that they have to run our life. Now, if you honestly reflect on your own life experiences, then you'll know that your emotions are powerful. And when they take over, they can fuel your thinking, the quality of your thoughts, and your actions. But when we have emotional intelligence, it means that we have this capacity to feel the sensations in our body, understand our emotions, and then navigate them to still act and do the things we need to do. We can assess a situation even though we feel intense emotions inside us, and then still act and do what we need to do. And that doesn't mean suppressing our emotions, because that would be the opposite of emotional intelligence. It means feeling them in a conscious way. For example, maybe you're having a conversation with someone, and they say something that triggers you. Maybe it upsets you, maybe it offends you in some way. Now, if you don't have any kind of emotional intelligence, then that emotion might come up out of you, project onto the other person. You might start insulting them, yelling, putting them down, anything to express that emotion. But that emotion is taking over you. Now, if you have some emotional intelligence, emotionally intelligent people can feel all of that coming up inside, but then still have a mature conversation. We can still talk to understand each other. And a lot of times there is so much misunderstanding in conversations. A lot of the times we say things and they're interpreted in ways that we didn't mean. And so this is something to keep in mind, and I actually made a video about that, misunderstandings, and I'll leave a link in the description below, and I highly recommend that you check that one out. But when we have emotional intelligence, we understand this, and we can still have those meaningful conversations even though emotions are present and maybe highly charged. And it can also help with decision making, because when we can navigate our emotions, we can think clearly without being fueled and guided by those emotions. Sometimes emotions can help us to recognize something or warn us of something, but we can acknowledge that and then make a clearer decision. All right, now this leads into the next aspect, which is empathy and understanding others. Emotional intelligence isn't just about ourselves. That's a big part of it, but it's also about how we interact with and understand others. When we have emotional intelligence, then we recognize emotions in other people. We can see things from their perspective. We can put ourselves in their shoes, and we can reflect on how we might feel or respond if we were in their place. And emotionally intelligent people tend not to judge a book by its cover. If we see someone having a big reaction or an outburst, then we understand that there's probably more to the story. There may be some underlying emotion or trauma that we're not aware of. Maybe the anger is covering a deep sadness, or maybe a certain sense of humor is covering a deep hurt. So there are things that we understand emotions in a way that we have more patience with people. Because the more we understand our emotions, the more we can understand the emotions of others. And this naturally leads to a greater sense of compassion, because we feel more connected to them. So this is a basic understanding of emotional intelligence. And I hope you can see now how it really is an essential life skill that helps us to really navigate all of life, all aspects of life, decision making, conversations, relationships. And I encourage you to reflect on some of these aspects. Do you feel like you have some but struggle with others? Let me know in the comments below. And there are some other questions that you can reflect on or ask yourself that reflect a degree of emotional intelligence. For example, can you take criticism or feedback? Can you admit when you're wrong? Can you take responsibility for your mistakes? Do you really understand why you do what you do? Can you resolve disagreements by taking into account the perspectives of all parties involved, not just your own? Now, helping people to develop greater emotional intelligence is something that I do. And it's something I love doing, because when we develop greater emotional intelligence, as we grow in it, we feel a greater sense of peace. We feel a greater sense of being empowered, like we're in the driver's seat instead of our emotions running the show. So emotions are part of the landscape of life. We have to navigate them. But when we have this emotional intelligence, we have that ability to be in the driver's seat, to navigate the landscapes of our mind, of our emotions. So if you're curious to know more about what I do, then I encourage you to visit peacekeeperproject.com. And if you'd like to reach out with questions or for support, then you can reach out through my website. All right, now if you did enjoy this video, please give it a like. If you know someone else could benefit from this video, please share it, even if it's one person. And if you'd like to be notified when I release new videos, then you can hit that subscribe button. Liking and subscribing to this channel is really the best way you can help me to build this channel so more people can find videos like this. All right, that's it for now. Thank you for being here, and I appreciate your presence. Until the next time, quiet your mind and live from your heart.